Assalamualaikum everyone, my name is Nitasha and welcome to another episode of Shaam Ki Chai where I interview Pakistanis doing really cool things. And today I'm super excited to have with us Anam Khan, who is the founder of the NewsRun. Thank you so much for being here today, Anam.
Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited for our conversation.
Me too. I've already finished like half the chai, so I hope there's more left.
Oh yes, there's more left. Don't worry about that. So a little tidbit here before we start, but before I even came across the NewsRun, I was doing a lot of research on Pakistani media and what's going on in Pakistan, and I was like, dang, I wish there was just something like the Skim for Pakistan, like a daily newsletter that just told me what was going on in the country every single day. And I came across the NewsRun, and that's exactly what you guys did. And I subscribed to you. It's been over a year. I open each and every single one of your newsletters, and this is not a shameless plug. She's not paying me to say this in any way, shape, or form. It's genuinely a fabulous product. I've sent it to all my family and friends, and I'm so grateful that you started it.
Thank you so much. That's great to hear.
Of course. And I want to get into why you started and all of that. But before we dig into that, let's go back all the way to the beginning and learn a bit more about what part of Pakistan you're from.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm originally from Lahore.
Okay.
Majority of my family is from Lahore.
Okay.
I have some family in Islamabad, but mostly I've spent my time in Lahore. I grew up in Lahore.
Okay.
I did all my elementary, middle school, high school in Lahore in one school.
Okay.
So yeah, I was like one of those people who didn't move from one school to the other. I was in one place for a very long time.
The whole entire. So you're a Lahoreite. Is that what you call
I don't know.
yourself?
I think I wouldn't push it. But
That's fair. That's fair. Okay. So then, what takes you from Lahore to the United States?
So I've been coming to the United States a lot, like over the summer for holidays with my family.
Oh, okay.
But then I officially moved to the States when I started college.
Okay.
And I went to Smith College in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And then after college, I lived in New York for a few years. I worked for a while at a financial research startup.
Okay.
And then I went to grad school.
Gotcha.
Where I studied strategic communications.
Okay.
And then after that, I moved back to Pakistan for like 1 or 2 years.
Gotcha.
Just to be with family because I'd been away for a pretty long time.
A very long time, yeah.
And then I moved back to the States.
Wow, okay.
So yeah, I kind of like flip-flopped between the States and Pakistan. But since I moved back, I've been in the States. What really sparked my interest in media was when I started grad school.
Okay.
And I did, as a part of my graduate school program, I had to do an internship in New York City.
Gotcha.
Like in a communications role.
Gotcha.
So like I had to do that to get the degree. Mm-hmm. And I did my internship at CNN.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
Yeah. So I wasn't a reporter necessarily, or like I wasn't working like on a production team. I was in the marketing department. Uh-huh. I was doing public relations. Uh-huh. But it was just like I've never like I like working, but like I've never like wanted the weekend to be over so I could go back to the office. It was such an adrenaline rush walking into that office every day.
That's amazing.
And I just love feeling so well informed because all around me, like all these anchors who you see on TV, like I could see them from like the mezzanine I was sitting on because they were on air, and I got to see all of that from behind the scenes. Yeah. And like then I became more interested in following what was happening in the news. Like I was already interested, but then I became more of a news junkie. Yeah. Like I just wanted to know what was happening around the world, and not only in the States, but also Pakistan, political developments, international relations, social issues. Like I just loved learning. Right. And I was going to be graduating soon, but then I realized that, like learning doesn't just stop once you leave school. Like it's all around you every day, especially when you're keeping up with the news. Right. So that's when I realized that this is the space I want to be in because like I like being informed.
What sort of triggered the idea for the NewsRun specifically?
So it's really whatever you just said about wanting to have a skim, but for Pakistani news, that's exactly how I felt. Okay.
So
I love the skim. Right. I read it every day. And when I moved back to Pakistan, when I moved back to the States, I was starting to feel disconnected from Pakistan. And like the news cycle in the States is already very hectic.
It is, yeah.
And in Pakistan, it's way worse.
Oh, yeah.
And on top of that, like there's so many news outlets, and like I feel like a lot of those news outlets, they do their best to get as much information out as they can, but sometimes they don't have the right context, or like you don't have enough background information about an issue they're focusing on, and sometimes the way they're written, like it's very dense and cluttered, and the articles are very long.
Right.
So I feel like I was falling behind on developments in Pakistan.
Right.
And like it is my home country,
of course,
that made me feel guilty.
Yeah.
So then I kept looking at the skim, and I'm like, oh, like this is amazing. Like, why hasn't anyone done this for Pakistani news? Initially, I thought that the news run was going to be for Pakistanis living abroad.
Okay.
Because like me, we don't live in Pakistan. The news isn't around us all the time.
Exactly.
We're not talking about it with people who are living there.
Yes.
But then based on the feedback I was getting, I noticed that a lot of people who were subscribing and telling us that they love our work were from Pakistan and Pakistan.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Like, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Because they have so many news outlets where they live.
Right.
But it's just a matter of like having a news outlet that helps them cut through all the noise.
All the noise, yeah.
Like Pakistani news, especially TV news, it's like very loud.
बहुत intimidating.
Like,
there's a lot.
It's so dramatic.
It's so dramatic.
Like, and there's so many like moving images behind the anchors, and like 5 tickers that you have to keep up with.
Yeah.
So, and also a lot of the headlines are like very like shock and awe type, clickbait.
Oh, hi,
and in some cases, the way the news is written, like if it's a very sensitive news story, it could be very triggering for the people reading it.
Yes.
So I think people just like having a break from all that with the news run, because the news run is very simple.
Right.
Like even the design, it's like a white background.
It is. Yeah.
1 or 2 pictures.
Yes.
Brief paragraphs.
Snippets.
Snippets of the news. So like one news headline, a small snippet about that headline.
Yes.
So it's just concise and digestible and to the point.
Right. Medium. There's a lot that's been going on in Pakistani news, media, politics lately. I mean, there's always a lot going on. Specifically, while we're filming this, the Noor case has happened over the last few weeks. A lot of other cases like that have happened. Hopefully, there isn't a new hashtag by the time this episode releases, but I wouldn't be surprised if there is. Do you think Pakistani media perpetuates this notion that violence against women is okay? Do you think media has any hand or some hand in the way women are treated in our society?
Well, I think in terms of the news, so in terms of the news, like usually when I read about cases where something terrible has happened to a woman, or she's experienced violence. In some cases she survived it, in some cases she unfortunately didn't. But I think framing plays a big part, and like what the writer chooses to report. And I think that they can be more responsible with that, and the way they quote their sources. Because I mean, we could get into a lot of detail here, but generally what I've been reading is that in a lot of cases it's framed to look like the woman did something wrong, to bring this upon herself.
Yes. Absolutely.
Like if they're talking to a police officer,
or
if they're talking to like someone investigating the case, it's always I just feel like they're not asking the right questions when they're trying to get their story. Like the question isn't, what was she wearing? Why was she out late? What's her relationship history? The question is, why did this guy do this? It's his fault. It's always the rapist's fault. And I feel like Pakistani media doesn't do a good enough job making that clear to its readers, because then that perpetuates victim blaming then.
Of course. Of course.
And it is unfortunately like misogynistic, like patriarchal undertones,
whatever you want to
which are like pretty predominant in Pakistan, and that does filter into the media we read as well.
New reporters that are watching this, or new people that are going into content writing and maybe covering topics like this, what are some things they can do to ask the right questions or frame the correct headlines? Or what are some things that you've done in the NewsRun to cover some of these cases that give the correct lens and language to what's going on?
So I guess the most recent example I can give is what's happened to Noor.
Yes.
There's so much speculation about what her background was with Zahir.
With Zahir, yeah.
And I just feel like a lot of media companies and a lot of reporters are trying to understand what their relationship was.
Yeah, they're focused on that.
They're so focused on that, but that's not the point. The point is whatever the relationship was, he, trigger warning, he killed her.
He killed her, yeah.
Doesn't matter what their history is, what she did, what she may have not done to make him angry. He's the one who is to blame.
Yes.
He is a murderer.
Yeah.
And I feel like the focus should be on him rather than what she could have done to provoke him.
Really appreciated the coverage that you've done on this case. In fact, what I've noticed is a lot of these newer age media companies, or they see Instagram handles, whether it's Brown Girl Mag or Womanistan, have done a very, very good job of covering what's going on. But more traditional media companies are missing the mark, like you're saying. They're not showing his face, or they're not. There's this picture of him in a suit looking really nice, and they just don't show that, right?
Yeah, or they just call him suspect. And don't say his name.
I think I read that somewhere, the primary suspect. I'm like, he's not. He just admitted to doing
this. He confessed. How are you calling him a
suspect? Okay, so to hopefully happier conversations, this show is called Shaam Ki Chai. And the reason it's called Shaam Ki Chai is because it's something that we all can connect on. And every single person that I've interviewed has some Shaam Ki Chai tradition in their house. So I'd love to learn about the traditions in your home around Shaam Ki Chai. What was it like? What did you drink? What did you eat? What did you talk about? Tell me everything.
So Shaam Ki Chai at my house in Lahore, it wasn't really an occasion.
Okay.
It was mostly just me and my mom.
Okay.
And we would have chai, and we wouldn't have a formal tea trolley or something.
Okay.
But I love having Mary biscuits.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
I bring a massive stash with me from Pakistan whenever I visit.
Nice.
And it still lasted me.
Okay.
Even though I couldn't go back to Pakistan in 2020. But yeah, so I love having Mary biscuits.
Okay.
Or pakoras.
Nice. Yeah.
And so my mom and I, we would just talk about the most random stuff.
That's awesome.
Or we would watch TV together and sip our chai and just make jokes or talk about our day.
Yeah.
So it was my special. It was our bonding time.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And thank you so much for taking the time, sharing your story with us, your journey. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This was great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks, guys, for watching. I will be back with another episode of Shaam Ki Chai. Stay tuned. Khuda Hafiz.